Hey guys, the following is a conversation I had with Dan Gates. Dan is on the forefront of this lion deal in Colorado. Right now, it's very close in the polls. Who knows if they're going to ban lion hunting or not? But we dive into a conversation way beyond that. We talk about why this is so important. This is beyond lion hunting. Dan talks a little bit about how we've taken on this fight, how outdoorsmen, hunters, fishermen have gotten together and really put out a great effort to combat this on a topic that a lot of people didn't think was going to be close at all. They thought that a lion ban in Colorado was inevitable, but it looks like it's going to be close. If you can support Dan in this fourth quarter, please do at SaveTheHuntColorado.com. Also, Dan is having an event at the Capitol on the 18th, just here in a couple days. If you're in Colorado, please go join him at that event at the Capitol. It's from 11 to 2 p.m. Yes, I know you guys are out there rifle hunting, but this is super important. Press is going to be there. It's important that outdoorsmen and hunters make a showing. I always enjoy talking to Dan. This is important stuff. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. All right, guys. So I wanted to mention that I'm having these custom skinning knives made. These are called Cliff Skinner. I've got a whole bunch of reasons why I've had this knife made the way that it's made. I've got a short video on the website. The details are there. Pursuitwithcliff.com. Click in the corner up by shop, you'll see Cliff Skinner. Click that puppy, you'll get all the details. Dan, thanks so much for having me on again, for taking the time to be on again. Dude, I've been out guiding, been in the mountains. Unfortunately, haven't been keeping as up to date as I would like to on what's going on in Colorado. Can you just give us like a status update on the lion deal and anything else that's going on?
A 1 minute, 30,000 foot overview, Cliff. and first of all, appreciate the opportunity to let us ride your coattails again. There's been a lot transpire since you and I last spoke, a lot transpire in the last 13 months, but specifically in the last 2.5 months, we're down into the nitty gritty, and the issue changed from Initiative 91 into Proposition 127 because it was certified to get on the ballot. And so we have a hunting ban on the ballot in Colorado that voters will vote on, I think, 25 days from now. And so we are in the last depths of our push to turn around and make sure that people are registered, that their registrations are updated, that they vote appropriately, because Colorado is a 100% mail-in ballot. There are no polls that you can go to. There's no precincts. And we still need money, because on television we're being outspent 2-1 by the enemy, because they've got a giant infusion from Wayne Pacelli with Animal Welfare Action, the former HSUS CEO of the Humane Society of the United States. Our ads are going out, our billboards are up, our grassroots campaign is flourishing beyond epic proportions. I mean, between what the general community is doing by our direction and the continuity and collaboration of the community that we've done fundraising and so forth this entire year, we're at the best spot we could possibly be, except for a little bit more money. And so we have multiple events coming up over the course of the next week, and we're just trying to put the final push on, because, as you well know, things go really, really fast. And when people look at politics, it goes even faster because they try to get through it as fast as what they possibly can. But we are creating havoc with our enemy, and our enemy is chasing our message, which shows that we are leading the charge. And I have to emphasize the grassroots side of this is so significant, so tremendously magnificent, from around the country, but specifically around the people that are here in the state of Colorado that have come together from every organization and every walk of life to really put on a big show and say, hey, line is in the sand, and we're willing to put it in the concrete and draw the line to where it's solidified. We want you to come and take it.
Yeah, and we were talking about it before I hit record. Dan, my personal opinion is, in all the different hunting-related legislation that I've dealt with since I was a little kid. I mean, I remember as a little kid, I had a kind of a split childhood. I spent some time in California, and I was born in Colorado, so I had a split childhood. But I remember them all the way back banning hound hunting in California. I remember that being a big deal. And all the issues since then, now 30 years later or 35 years later, through my whole life, I've never seen an issue, at least from my perspective, that hunters were so organized around. And again, I don't know, because social media, there's so much like there's the algorithm like pushing certain content in front of me. But outside of that, I feel I've never seen such an organized push from hunters against a piece of legislation like this ban on line hunting in Colorado. So that's a very big positive from my perspective. I think you're a big part of that. I think Howell's a big part of that. And so in a way, I think I personally would say, I know probably through the process you have a lot of critiques on different groups, and I want to get into that with you. But from my perspective, I would say it's one of the few times I've been really proud of hunters in on the advocacy side. I feel like we've always been pretty much blatant failures in that regard. So at least that's a very positive thing from my perspective. Having said that, it's important that we win this one. But where are we at on that, Dan? Is there any indicator what it looks like?
Well, the last poll that we could afford to do was about 3 weeks ago, and that poll indicated a 45% for, 44% against, and the remaining were undecided.
Yeah, so it's just
So roughly 12% undecided. And to give it some context, back in 2020, when we were fighting Proposition 114, which was the wolf proposition, which inevitably passed, the poll that was done the first time on that was 68% favorable, and we were never any more higher than 54, but we knocked it down to 45. But the good thing about that wolf deal is that even though it was 68% favorable, the team that they used, which is the same team that we have here, knocked it down to 50.9%. So they dropped it almost 17 points, but they ran out of money. I mean, the community together collectively ran out of money, and they had nothing close to the armament and the collaboration and the Army and the outreach and the messaging that we've had. And so I say that tongue in cheek, not to make it look like that we're bigger, better, meaner, faster, stronger, but we've raised 3.5 times as much money as 2 of those campaigns did collectively. And while there might be some parallel opportunities for additional campaigns to be structured here in the next 26 days, which has not been yet determined, if we're able to pull this off, based upon what we've done since September 22nd of 2023, if we're able to pull this off, you will see a change in the strategy and the dynamics of what the animal extremist groups come back for, because they thought last year that they surprised us, which they didn't. They thought that they immediately outfunded us, which they didn't. They thought that they figured out a way to outmaneuver us and out-strategize us, which they didn't. And I say all that not because we're so damn smart. It's because 3 days after the fact, and I told you guys this before, 3 days after the fact, when they filed last year, we had the attorneys and we had the strategy team hired, and we had enough money to carry us through all the way through the end of December, which then we needed to start fundraising. There wasn't another organization on the planet that was prepared for that. But that all being said, that allowed us to get into a position of power, influence, and strategy and fundraising on our own once we were able to take them to the mat in January, when we forced them on the issues to the Supreme Court, the Title Board, and the Secretary of State, which they were not prepared for. They had no idea that we were this well formulated or strategized. Now, that being said, you look at what we immediately did, and I thought personally that we needed to outreach as far and wide as what we could. And while I was unfamiliar with the podcast circuit, like I told you before, this is my 87th podcast. How many have you done this year?
Yeah, not that many.
No, and it has allowed me to build a brand with an ugly bearded face and a little bit of gravitas to be able to talk about the subject matter, and a willingness to sacrifice my entire life with my family and my business and every aspect of our livelihood to make these bastards knock the chip off my shoulder, because it's been something that's been coming up and coming up and coming up, and now we've culminated with this ballot issue. And so, to your point, I'm 61 years old. I've never seen anything to this level, and it's not because we've done it. It's just because it hasn't happened like this.
Right.
And I think that we've structured this for our side, and we've also structured it for the opposition to where if we win and if we lose, the other side is going to have to retool to some degree and go, huh, well, we just can't keep doing it like this. And if we win, they're going to go, we don't want to do it like that. Right. And I think that our side at the same time is going, if we win, we hold these bastards at bay, no pun intended, because it's hounds, but we hold them at bay for the next 26 months left of this governor's term, to where we beat them at the Secretary of State on their own language. We beat them at the legislature with previous legislation. We beat them 3 times at the Colorado Parks and Wildlife Commission. And if we get lucky enough to beat them at the ballot, I mean, Cliff, would you want to turn around and come back in when it costs you millions and millions of dollars in headache and lost revenue? And I mean, they'll go somewhere else, or they'll try another playbook.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, and it hurts their branding. It hurts their whole kind of business, right? And I think that that's the interesting part of this, Dan. Like, that's the most important part. Like, I mean, again, going back to when I was a kid, Dan, there's never been, in my experience, I don't really remember any legislation that provided more opportunities for hunters or did less restriction for hunters. They've all been chipping away at it. You know what I mean? Yep. And so you have to look at it as like, well, you have to fight the structure of it, or what's the point? Because eventually they're just going to keep chipping away at it. So you have to win in this way, right? You have to basically beat whatever model they have. And I find you intriguing in that regard, Dan, because you're fighting a battle that's about lion hunting, but you're not a guy who has 50 hounds and has a livelihood based on lion hunting. No. You know, so you're looking at it beyond that, and I think that's a good frame for all hunters to look at this thing. Is it's not just about a lion ban; it's beyond that. And you guys have done a good job of sending that message, and I'm a big fan of that because it's true. Like, if you can beat them on this one, it means, you know, they're going to question their approach, and also all the people who are funding them are going to question it, man.
Oh yeah,
and yeah. That's huge.
Well, and I'm a trapper. I'm not a houndsman. What I have to lose on trapping with this is being able to trap bobcats with cages, because that's all we have in the state of Colorado. Being able to not harvest bobcats with a firearm or a predator call and call them in or whatever. If this was bighorn sheep, and I've only ever hunted bighorn sheep twice, and I killed 1 ram, I guided bighorn sheep hunters for about 15 years. But if this was bighorn sheep, I would do the same thing. But I can't afford to go hunt a bighorn anymore unless I just happen to get lucky and draw a tag. If this was about swift fox, which we have fought before because of the fur bearer and the small game classifications, and for some reason, the small game aspect of this and the fur bearing aspect of this is the low hanging fruit. We have beat them every single time since 2007 to the total of 11 times over that time period. And so when people say, oh, you just started, no, we haven't just started this. We lost trapping in 1996 by the constitutional amendment that the voters voted on to ban body gripping devices, cable restraint devices, and foothold traps. But they didn't take cages off because they said, well, who's going to catch anything in cages? Now they're bitching that we're catching too many things in cages. Yeah. Well, I run a wildlife control business, Cliff, and about 95% of what we do to catch and remove something is with cages.
Right.
And so if you look at what they've utilized in the language of this and the structure and the wording of it and the way that it's been synthesized to where you can see what they're actually trying to do, you can see that it doesn't have anything to do with bobcats and mountain lions. It doesn't have to do with swift fox and beavers like what they're trying to eventually take away. It has to do with the pursuit of game.
Yeah, sure.
And when they talk about the release of a firearm or a deadly weapon, the shooting or releasing, well, that's an archery and muzzleloader, shotgun, and a rifle.
Right.
That doesn't have anything to do with trophy hunting.
Right.
But it's in the title. It's in the measure. when you talk about intentionally killing, wounding, stalking, pursuing, and trapping, that's hunting.
Right.
And so, yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, I've got skin in this game for a variety of different reasons. It's not because I'm a houndsman, but I got skin in the game because we have beat them at every single level. We have never lost in my tenure since 2007. We've never lost on any level, and I'm doing everything that I can possibly do to give the people the tools and the experience of what our successes were and what our hiccups were, and always warn them about our failures that we haven't had yet. But it's always just one issue around the corner.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I think that other states are learning from us, other organizations are learning from us, other people that maybe have a different mindset as far as species or method of take or whatever. I don't know what I told you when I talked to you before, but between alligator trappers or eastern grouse hunters or caribou hunters or black-tailed deer hunters or javelina hunters, they've all come out to support what we're doing because they see it. Once you force feed them the language and they look at
Right.
it and go, holy crap, you could take javelina in here, a bighorn sheep in there, and turn around and it would be the exact same thing because it's not specific to mountain lions or bobcats, except for the fact that they name mountain lions and bobcats.
Right. I'm assuming, I mean, the reason they're doing that is because that's like one that pulls on people's heartstrings. Like a naive voter is gonna look at that and be, they're gonna go with that, right? So that's obviously.
I think they've got a chip on their shoulder because they lost so many times on mountain lions and bobcats, and they just think, well,
Oh,
we just
okay.
can't change. We just can't change the scheme. We got to get one underneath our belt, and then we can go to something else.
Right.
But I want to read to you and your followers the final language in the title of the ballot. Now, this here just came out this week. Let's see, it was good. This is the Blue Book, Colorado State Blue Book. It's 109 pages. It's got 14 ballot measures in it, 7 constitutional and 7 statutory. Number 127 is 2.5 pages in it. Now, that's not the ballot. That's to get all your inside information on each one of the ballot measures, and then each individual voter will get a ballot, fill that out. If they want more information, they go to the Blue Book and they can dissect it and synthesize it as much as what they need to.
Yep.
But the final title to this specific 127 is a change to the Colorado revised statutes concerning a prohibition on the hunting of mountain lions, lynx, and bobcats, and in connection therewith prohibiting the intentional killing, wounding, pursuing, and trapping or discharging or releasing of a deadly weapon at a mountain lion, lynx, or bobcat, creating 8 exceptions to this prohibition, including for the protection of human life, property, and livestock, establishing a violation of this prohibition as a Class 1 misdemeanor, and increasing fines and limiting wildlife license privileges for persons convicted of this crime. In prohibiting the intentional killing, wounding, pursuing, entrapping, or discharging or releasing of a deadly weapon. That's a crossbow, some sort of archery, a rifle, shotgun, muzzleloader, pistol. That's what that is. There's nothing in this measure, nothing in the title of this measure that mentions trophy hunting like the antis continually allude to. It
Right.
says concerning a prohibition on the hunting of. But you could turn around and take the hunting of bighorn sheep, mallard ducks, and Rocky Mountain elk, just like they do in all 3 of these categories with mountain lions, lynx, and bobcats, which, as we've talked about many times, lynx are state and federally protected in the lower 48 and can't be harvested anyway. So that's a misnomer. The 8 exceptions to the rule that they say that, in quotes, that they're giving us are already set in Colorado statute that we already have. They're supposedly just continuing to allow us, but in all reality, they would have to change the statute if they took that stuff away. The exceptions are protection of human health and safety, private property, livestock depredation, a variety of different things that we already have. And those are not methods of hunt.
Right.
They're not methods of management. They're not methods of take. You don't have to have a license. And they're alluding to the general public that, oh, we're still allowing hunting. This is not a hunting ban. They just did an interview with Channel 4 News yesterday in Colorado. This is not a hunting ban. They can still hunt. None of those exceptions are hunting.
Yeah, so let's dive into that more, Dan, because I think there's things that you know from like the the legislative side and the details and the definitions that you're talking about, and then there's things that are like the reality of what's occurring in terms of who's funding, the whole thing and all of that that solidify this to me. Because I hate to say it, Dan, but I do think that there's a segment of hunters who think they kind of believe in this, like, oh, they're just making a slippery slope argument, right? Like, oh, it's lions and then it's going to be something else. Dan's full of crap. It's just going to be about lions. They're not going to, go to elk hunting, go to deer hunting. But man, I saw a piece of content, and I'll be honest, I've always hated the guy, Wayne Pacelli, and I hate very few people, but in terms of my lifestyle, everything I grew up around, in like basically the definition of who I am, the guy is anti it, right? So
Yeah.
I feel fair saying that he's one of the few people that I very much dislike, and he's many times overtly described that he wants no hunting.
Right.
Yeah, like
Exactly.
period. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
None.
And you guys put a great piece of content out on it. But dive into that, Dan, because that is the guy who has stepped in as driving this last hurrah, right?
Yeah. Wayne had some claims. Obviously, they must have been true enough to HSUS got rid of his ass, but they had some claims against him about sexual improprieties or sexual assault
Sure.
or whatever. So HSUS got rid of him as their CEO. Then he went out on his own and he started two organizations. One is the Animal Welfare Action, which is the one that is primarily funding this proposition, and then the other one is for the Institute for a Humane Economy. And so he started these things, but what he did is he just transferred some of his contacts and some of the funds that he made during that whole process as the CEO to these other components of his wishes, wants, and desires. The interesting thing about that, and I have to throw this out, is the United States, the Humane Society of the United States, has not come out in support of this particular measure.
Right.
They are neutral because Wayne Pacelli's involved, and they do not support what he stands for or what he's doing. They're not funding it. They're not advocating for it. They're not advertising it. I'm not saying that they are condemning it, but they're not condoning it either.
Right.
And so to show the divisiveness of some of the supporters that are coming out against or for this, but against us, or the ones that are sitting on the sidelines, I think it shows that even in that circle, there's a significant dissension or there's a significant level of consternation that some of those individuals know that maybe this isn't the right way to go. Because I believe, and I believe it not from my opinion, I believe it through some factual conversations and documented instances. If we win, the people that are sitting on the sidelines don't want to have anything to do with the loss.
Right.
They don't want to turn around and they don't want to turn around and say we hung our hat on Wayne Pacelli's freaking hat rack and we got our ass kicked, because then how are we going to recoup from a state level?
Right.
Now, that seems like an overstatement. But we're talking organizations that have tens of millions, of hundreds of millions of dollars, while we're sitting here scraping around trying to come up with a couple $1,000,000 to fight a campaign. Wayne has meticulously strategized his position and gotten people like Pat Craig with the Animal Wildlife Sanctuary, who's a great friend of Governor Jared Polis, and his husband, Marlon Reese, who is an animal extremist. They've got great support from a gal by the name of Julie Marshall, a guy by the name of David Ruin, a guy by the name of Charles Seymour, a gal by the name who's running their campaign, which is Samantha Brugger Miller, which is the Cats Aren't Trophy campaign. These are not the normal people that have been into these circles throughout animal rights extremism, and opposition over the course of the last 5, 10, 15 years. The ones that are sitting on the perimeter are, but they're not joining forces in this like what you would think and what they've alluded to. they've called some strange people out of the woodwork, and you go, I don't know where these people came from, but they
Are
weren't on.
they are they more extreme? Are they more extreme anti-hunting, or is it just they're different people, Dan? I do very few endorsement deals, and I do no paid reviews because it would affect the type of content, quality of the knowledge I could put out. So an important part of my business model is my membership group. I'll stick a link right here where you can sign up. There's paid and free options. I do a weekly live stream there. There is a thriving community of folks that are helping everybody become a better outdoorsman. It doesn't matter if you're a beginner or if you're an expert, there's something there for you. Go join, guys. It helps me out a ton. It's the way to support this content and to support me. I'll see you there.
I think they're more extreme in the sense to where they're different people, but they're more extreme because they feel that this is the time is ripe for the picking, because Colorado has gubernatorial leadership that is extremist oriented on the agriculture side and the wildlife side. The legislature with the Colorado Voters for Animals Caucus is more friendly toward that ideology. They've got more support because of governor appointments and positions that have been held, including Ellen Kessler with the vet board that then got charged with cruelty to animals and ran up multiple complaints and convictions. That was Governor Polis's pick after Marlon Reese said this person needs to be in that position, and then she got charged with cruelty to animals.
Yeah.
The commission appointments for the Parks and Wildlife Commission, if you look at the nepotism there, you look at the undermining relationships that have been created with people that are related to each other or married to each other with different last names and people of power, with people of money. And some of the original supporters that we've been battling for the last 15 years are still sitting on the sideline. They don't show up to the meetings like they did. They let these guys have the spotlight. They let them take the criticism. And I honestly believe they're either waiting to ride their coattails to victory and say, okay, now we can support you, or they're waiting to say, in the agony of defeat, you guys are on your own because we still have some pieces to pick up here in Colorado. And hopefully you guys will go away so we can actually get back to business of what we were trying to accomplish.
Yeah, but either way, it's a signal of division, like division amongst them, which is from a hunter's perspective a good thing.
Oh yeah, since Governor Polis was elected in 2018, we've been able to prop up and literally build the largest caucus at the Capitol, and that's the Legislative Sportsman's Caucus. It's the most recognized, it's the most well represented, it's the most bipartisan in a Capitol setting that has a 49-16 margin with Democrats and Republicans in the House, and 23 Democrats to 16 senators in the House, 16 or 12, 23 to 12 in the Senate, and so to have the largest caucus, which I'll send you an invite for this coming Wednesday if you want to watch, because I don't think there's going to be any fireworks, but there might be some revelations. And it's a virtual setting from noon until 1. But you might actually find something of interest of what we're actually able to accomplish, especially in this. It's kind of like when you go to the Gold Dome in Colorado, you feel like you're walking in to the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
And then when you get there, you realize that maybe everybody that runs this place is a bunch of munchkins. And I honestly, I mean, this is the most dysfunctional I've ever seen the Colorado Capitol in the 12 or 15 years that I've been playing at it. And it's gotten worse since Governor Polis has been there, because either people are really pissed at Governor Polis, or they want to make him happy, or they're trying to make sure that they stay in the shadows to where he doesn't know who they are.
Yeah,
and
I got you.
There are very little bipartisan opportunities to work together. And while we've created a bunch of that ourselves, we've created an awareness, we've created a sense of collaboration that, because of the agricultural community and because of the sportsman community and the tight-knitness there, a lot of those legislators realize that one is the other more often than not, and there were not two separate entities. And they find out that while Colorado sportsmen and women provide $3.2 billion to the economic input, the agriculture community is $47 billion.
Right.
So you put $50 billion together, and that makes an impact when legislators are going, well, I don't really need their vote, but I don't want to piss them off.
Right.
Because if I piss them off, they might come at me full force. And this is kind of a little bit of a Democrat leaning district, but there's a lot of Republicans in it, and I want to get reelected.
Right.
And so what I'm getting at is we've had to start playing politics more since 2018 than what we ever thought we would. And we're the only organization in the state of Colorado that's got full-time lobbying representation. We've had 3 lobbyists. That gives us relevancy at the Capitol.
Sure.
And I'm sad to say that our current lobbyist is running for House District 58, Kathleen Curry, and she's doing very well. And she might very well get that seat, which would help us out from personal perspectives and her involvement and engagement. She is a cattlewoman. She is a Democrat, but she does support conservation and water and wildlife resources and hunting and fishing. But we are searching for a new lobbyist. And though all of that plays into this whole model, along with 127 and the other issues that we're having to deal with, because there's some volatility, there's some chinks in the armor, so there's some fragility on the landscape. If we don't win, all of that stuff not only is crumbling a little bit, it's tumbling.
Right.
And then that with 26 months left in the governor's current term, well, pretty soon you look and go, what value do we provide anymore if we lose?
Right.
And I say that because we have a scheduled meeting on the 14th and 15th of November, 10 days, 9 and 10 days after the election, where the commission has postponed previously the vote on the East Slope Mountain Lion Management Plan that was brought to them in August, not by coincidence, or nothing other than coincidence, because the agency had been working on an East Slope Mountain Lion Management Plan for multiple years, trying to figure out how to formulate it and what to do with it. And then all of a sudden the ballot initiative dropped. So it looked like they were doing this to thwart or provide contrast to this particular ballot initiative, which they weren't. But if we lose on November 5th, there's no sense for an East Slope Mountain Lion Management Plan. So there's 2 losses in 10 days. If we win on November 5th, then there's a need for an East Slope Mountain Lion Management Plan, and now we have 2 victories. Right. So this is it's kind of like a 16-game football season, Cliff, because if you're 1-1, well, it's no big deal. But in this case, we're either going to be 2-0 or 0-2.
Yeah.
And that's a big deficit for us to come out of, or a big deficit for them to come out of. That's why this election is so important for the immediate future. But if you look at the stuff and the way that it's worded about the determination of setting a precedent and a preemptive strike about case law and getting a camel nose under the tent, this is the biggest thing that the Western United States has had to deal with since California lost their stuff.
Right. Sure. Yeah. No, absolutely. And that's why it's hard. I mean, we were talking about a little bit before the call. It's hard because a big chunk of, where the money's coming from and all of that on our side, they're all distracted right now because it's hunting season. You know what I mean, Dan? Yeah. So, and that's nobody's fault other than just, the elections are in November. That is what it is. But let's cover that right now, Dan. And then, we'll go on and talk about more stuff. But how can like this last push, if you could wave a wand and ask, my viewers or just, whoever out there for help on this, what would it be and what would you ask for?
Well, everybody thinks we've been begging, borrowing, and stealing for money for the last 13 months, but they're right.
Yeah, that's okay.
I said this on an earlier podcast I was on, Lift, Hunt, Eat this morning, or Hunt, Lift, Eat with Luke. And last night I was on with Sam Thrasher. And I've said this on the last 4 or 5 that I've been on this week, that we need to be able to finish this campaign like what we started. We don't need to trickle in and just hope that we're going to get across the finish line. We don't want to just play rope-a-dope in the corner and maybe get by on the judge's card that we won the first rounds well enough. We need to finish strong to make sure that the final push that we have is the best effort that we have and the best foot forward. And to do that, we got to have money. We can
Yeah.
still buy ads all the way up until about the 30th of October, depending on how the election process takes place. But please consider that because ballots started going out today, ballots could actually, in theory, start being turned in through the mail tomorrow.
Right.
And so there's a concept that it's about a 30-30-30 split, that within the first week, 30% of your ballots will go in, then roughly 30% after that, and then the last 2 weeks you'll have the remaining 30%. So the more time that goes by that we can't go toe for toe advertising, the less opportunity we have for capturing as many potential target audience voters as what we possibly could. Not to mention the fact that uh, you're losing the opportunity for saturation and exposure on the messaging side. And so
Right.
money from anybody, I don't care if it's $5 or $50 or $5,000.
Right.
They can put money into SaveTheHuntColorado.com, like what they always have been,
Yeah.
or the issues committee that we are forced by law to formulate, that we did, that I'm the chair of. There's a documenting, disclosure, accountability, transparency component to the issues committee, to where there's 24-hour reporting, independent expenditure committees, and accounting that we have to pay for. We know what the opposition is doing, and they know exactly what we're doing on that campaign. We know how much money they take in. We know how much money they spend out.
Mm-hmm.
On Save the Hunt, we are a 501c4, and we're not an issues committee. So there's, I won't say some leniency, but there's variances of what we can do on the Save the Hunt side of it. But if somebody donates $5, that's $5 more than what we had. But when the opposition is getting $1,000, now look how many $5 ones we need. If somebody donates $50 on our end, and we have to pay the independent expenditure consultant or the accountants for a month $5,000, well, we got to come up with 100 guys at $50 a piece. And if you look at the opposition, somebody donates $250,000.
Right.
So while we're paying expenses on some aspects, we're not building the armament up to get to the level to where we can match punch for the opposition. So I had a question today on one of the podcasts, and they said, well, what if a guy just gets tired of donating, or he's not want to donate anymore? Well, SCI Colorado chapter is doing another raffle for us. It's on SaveTheHuntColorado.com. It's a whitetail hunt in Saskatchewan for 2. There's also a Gunworks rifle that Salida Gun Shop and Gunworks is doing. The chapter did a big raffle for us, as you recall, back in June. It was a monumental success to the tune of several $100,000 to the campaign, and all that was donated stuff. And so that's an opportunity if somebody wants to kick in, but maybe they kicked in previously. You still get an opportunity to win something.
Sure.
By kicking in, and every single dollar that you kick into Wildlife Deserve Better, or Save the Hunt Colorado, or to the raffle, every single dollar will go into the pot to pay the bills for the advertising and the messaging and the outreach.
Yeah, and I think that's a key part of this, Dan. Like, dude, I was just like I mean, I've never been real wealthy in my life, and I was just a poor kid or whatever, so I'm always looking for value. And this is going to sound ridiculous, but right now, man, like, if I gave you money, I know exactly what you're going to spend it on. I see you guys advertising, like, it's spot on. Like, I feel like your messaging is super well developed at this point. And so my perspective is, like, even if you've donated before, you don't have a whole lot of worry right now that it's going to like go into the ether. Like, it's going into ads, basically, like messaging. Basically, in a way, try, like, the 10 or 12% of people who are undecided, it's getting them educated. I mean, you could call it trying to buy that, that exposure or whatever. So it's pretty direct. I mean, the value proposition is obvious,
Well, and the grassroots side of this, I mean, that doesn't go cheap either.
Right.
I mean, the grassroots side, when you start looking at now the individual tailgate wraps that people were doing, that you've seen advertised on social media and stuff that people are doing, that's out of their own pocket. That's
Sure.
My name's Bob Smith, and I want a tailgate wrap. I'm going to pay $350, and I'm going to go to my graphic designer, and he's going to put it on there, and I've got skin in the game, and I'm part of this process. Well, we have over 500 of those.
Yeah, that's cool.
500 moving billboards. There might be a few more now, but 500 moving billboards up and down the I-25 corridor. And then we've got dozens and dozens and dozens of digital billboards. We've got some static billboards. But then the 4x8 billboards that you see everywhere now. There's over 700 4x8 billboards that individuals have come up with on their own, and over 22,000 yard signs as a grassroots effort that you can't go in any community in the state of Colorado. You stop and think, there's 64 counties, uh, roughly 300, I think that's right, roughly 300 yard signs per
Yeah,
county
that's
to get to
awesome.
22,000. That's a monumental feat in itself when you look at major thoroughfares and intersections and a bunch of different things, not to mention the fact the television ads, the streaming ads, the social media ads, and all the stuff that goes out. But just being able to mechanize this and create a conduit for it for gatherings and distribution of information and distribution of literature, and then being able to turn around and pick signs up from these guys to take them to these guys, and these guys need T-post, and then there's a special function with a pint night with Rocky Mountain Bighorn Society and backcountry hunters and anglers, and then the Gunnison Wildlife Association is doing something, and then the Colorado Bow Hunters Association is doing something. None of this goes without notice,
Right.
but none of it goes without time and effort, and that goes into the being able to create that grassroots methodology that complements and enhances the actual paid media campaign component to make sure that you're compliant and that you're crossing your T's and dotting your I's. And keep in mind too, Cliff, people say, well, why is it so expensive? My brother owns an overhead door company, and he can do ads for this. He's not running for president, and he's not trying to run a political ad.
Yeah, yeah.
And so when you have a presidential election going on and an ad costs $1,000 when it normally costs $300, then we have to get into that spot somewhere because we're political, and that ad's going to cost us $300. So our buy is about 3 times as costly as it would be if we're running a pet supply store or if we're doing a landscape business.
Right.
And
It's just because it's a competitive marketplace on
yeah,
that. Like,
and
yeah.
and there's only so many 15 and 30-second spots available in a 24-hour day.
Yeah, which I guess it's more of a grassroots thing. And tell me if I'm wrong, Dan, but that's also why, reposting your guys' stuff, liking your guys' stuff,
Yeah.
all that stuff matters.
Yes.
'Cause, you're
Yes.
basically, because it's a way of helping you guys economically, in a sense.
Yeah. I mean, I said this to Luke on the hunt, lift, eat, hunt. I get them mixed up because there's so
Yeah,
many
we know who
different
you're
hunt
talking
ones.
about.
Yeah. And I apologize, Luke. I apologize. I got a brain fart here, but we need this community to be bought into the concept of I don't need to check a heart to say I like it. I need somebody to know that knows me why I like it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I need them to understand that it's important to me, and I need you to vote to help me sustain my livelihood and my preferences. I mean, I told this story this morning, and it's worth telling. Over the weekend, it was antelope season here in Colorado, and over the weekend, a guy here in Canyon City killed an antelope, and he's lived in this location for 17 years. Killed an antelope in a subdivision. He was going back to his house.
Mm-hmm.
He unloads the antelope out of his truck to take it into the garage. The neighbor across the street, this is a subdivision. Neighbor across the street lived there for 14 years. They've known each other for 14 years. He sees it. What's he doing over there? What was that?
Yeah.
So they go over there and they look, and they're hanging this antelope up. And he says, what is that? He said, that's an antelope. He said, well, I know it's an antelope. What are you doing with it? And he goes, I hunted it. The guy looks at him and says, I didn't know you hunted. So if the guy across the street for 14 years doesn't know that this guy hunts, how does he know that hunting is important to him if he's never tried to convey that? And this guy told me, look, I just try to be secretive. I don't want to turn around and burden anybody. I don't know what people's political views or their misfortunes are or their beliefs. And I just try to keep it sound, and nobody's coming to my house to look at my man cave in the basement.
Yeah.
He said, and these people have been to my house for dinner.
Yeah, sure.
My point is, if you compare that to social media, How many people do we all know on social media that do not hunt? Not all
Oh
of my
yeah,
friends, not all of my
sure.
friends are hunters, whether it's social media or otherwise. If you go to church, how many of your congregation know that you hunt, or do they hunt themselves? We have a tendency to network with like-minded people, but not everybody we deal with, whether it's the guy at the hair salon or the guy at the soccer field or the guy at the landscape company or the vet that you have. Not everybody hunts, but they need to know that you hunt and that you're an ethical, respectful, very logically, thoughtfully minded individual that cares about wildlife and stewardship of our natural resources, because then they are more likely to support something because they know you and Joe and Cliff and Dan are pretty good guys, and I will ask them about it, or I'm just going to support it because I know it's important to them.
Right.
We don't
Sure.
do a good job of that.
Yeah, yeah, no, and like it's an interesting topic because for sure right now, if you're going to be public about the fact you're a hunter or whatever, it's a good time to do that. I personally think that it's always a good time to do that, but
Yep.
I'm also been a guided outfitter. All my world is, I feed like the way I feed my family. There's no negative to being very
Right.
open about a hunter. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
I'm I'm biased that way, and I understand that for other people that might be a little bit different. But I guess one thing I would say is any non-hunter that I've ever, I've posed like I have followers and that sort of thing that are non-hunters from other aspects of my life, people I went to college with, high school, whatever, and they see me post up something about the lion ban or some other aspect of hunting. I get messages all the time, and I mean, the 99 out of 100 of them, Dan, are not confrontational.
No,
They're just curious.
no.
You know what I mean?
I mean,
It
we're driving around with these big, giant, full size tailgate wraps on all these trucks.
yeah,
I've had mine on for a little over 3 weeks on multiple vehicles. I can only drive one at a time, but I figured if I'm going to drive it anywhere, there's going to be
sure.
one on it. And
Yeah,
and so you got several $100s invested. I've been flipped off once. Every other time, people have stopped me at the intersection, got me in the parking lot, had the window rolled down, gave me a thumbs up. Where do I get that? Thanks for doing that. These are strangers.
yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah.
And that builds up a level of awareness. If we can do that with complete and utter strangers, why can't that we do that with our tight knit network or community that we have?
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, for sure. And I think like even like the more tactical thing on social media, and I'm gonna try. I've always tried to do this with your guys' stuff, but I'm gonna try to do it more. Is like when I repost it, if I put it on my stories, like do a little caption of why am I putting it up? You know what I mean? Like, hey, this is bigger than a lion ban. This is really about hunting or
Yep.
whatever. Some additional aspect. I think that's
Or put some what I've learned too. Not that I'm a social media guru, because as I told you, I never had an Instagram. Well, actually, I take that back. I had an Instagram page, but I didn't know what to do with it. So Charles Whitwam for Howl said, "Do you have an Instagram?" I said, "Yeah, I got an Instagram." And he looks at it and he goes, "You've never even set it up." And I'm like, "Well, I didn't know what to do with it." And he said, "Well, you said you have one." And I said, "I do have one." He said, "Well, that's like having a car and never driving it, for crying out loud." And so he got me set up on it. I am not by any means a road scholar when it comes to that. But Lauren Schrag with Good Bull Outdoors
yeah,
is doing our social media stuff, and Lauren is badass.
sure.
Lauren has got his shit together, and we've got Justin Nolan who's on our team who's helping out with that. Justin is a business owner, owns
Yeah,
a business
midterm.
called Justin
Oh yeah. Hmm.
Minturn Anglers, and just great guys. But these
Yeah.
guys are much more savvy and smart about this stuff than I'll ever be. I mean, I'll still get something, and I'm like, well, I don't know if I should push this button or push that button. If I get this sent to me, I don't know what to do with it, uh, and I'm still trying to navigate and figure some of that stuff out. But I'm learning from some really good guys.
Sure.
But I've also, because of my professional life and my professional volunteerism through appointments and stuff, um, I have a different perspective because I'm an old gray haired white guy, and
Right.
and the people that I'm trying to message to with this campaign and with some of our other endeavors to show the benefits of hunting and fishing and conservation, where target audience is 18 to 34, normally single or single women are mothers of two. A lot of them do not have uh, any interest in outdoor consumptive recreation,
Sure.
and but they appreciate knowing that the wildlife is appropriately taken care of. And if you're not tight on time, I want to give you a little story on something I think is
No, no, no.
it's
I'm good, man. Go for it.
a couple weeks ago. I was fortunate enough to go to a Colorado's Rockies game back in September, and I got to throw out the first pitch.
Oh, cool.
And because one of the committees and councils that I'm on, they chose me to be able to do so. So my family went, and we had a suite lined up with a bunch of people, sportsmen and women, and other conservation minded individuals. And so we went down, and about 2 weeks after that, we had a few other tickets left over for that particular council, and I got to go, and we went to a bar afterwards, and it's north of Coors Field. I was staying downtown Denver, and that's not my neighborhood. I'll tell you that. I mean, it's just
Sure.
I mean, I stand out like a sore thumb.
I get it.
And so, but we went to a couple bars, and by the time that evening was over, I had struck up conversations, um, kind of like an old weird guy. I'm always wearing my bear claw, I always got this in tow. But I wrote it down on a napkin, and then we compiled it into some data because I wanted to see how close my research was at a bar, nonetheless, with
Sure.
what we'd done on fact finding and outreach through a couple of these messaging campaigns and the research that we've done, to the total of over $800,000 in the last 8 years. And that's
Right.
how we've done a significant amount of our messaging. And so when I first hit the first group of girls up, they're all out on a Saturday night. And it was hard for me to break the ice with that, because here it is, an old bearded white guy with a
Yeah, sure.
big giant bear claw, and I started asking questions. These girls were like, they just kind of rolled their eyes. But when I said I would buy the first round of drinks,
Then they were on it. Yeah.
yeah, I said, I just want to ask a few questions. And I'm doing a little bit of a survey for myself. And so the 5 girls turned into a total for the evening of 25 women, all between the ages of 21 and 28. And I wish I'd have had the gravitas to be able to talk to those type of beautiful women when I was in my 20s, because I'd have probably been a lot happier when I was in my early 20s than what I was. And that's why I was out drinking and fighting and rodeoing. And but 21 to 28 years old, 21 of the 25 were registered to vote. And I've said this enough now, I memorize it, but 19 of the 21 indicated they were voting for Kamala Harris. 19 of the 21, downtown Denver.
Yeah.
All of these girls made between $60,000 and $150,000 a year.
Sure.
Very well educated, upper level, medical profession, technological stuff, nuclear physicism. I mean, you name it. They were
Yeah,
into
sure.
it.
Well educated.
Yeah, well educated,
Yeah.
much better than me going out and trapping squirrels and trying to trap raccoons and stuff. And we all have our expert levels, that we deal in.
Yeah, sure.
And when asked questions about Proposition 127 on the mountain lion and bobcat ban, 16 of the 21, I say 21 because the rest of them weren't registered to vote, 16 of the 21 said, almost verbatim, why in the hell are we allowed to vote on stuff like this?
Yeah.
No, we're not. No, we're not. No, we were not supporting this. Okay,
Right.
well, I thought, which is weird because you got 19 that are voting for Harris. And then the flip side of it, and the reason I say it is because we all stereotype people. You
Sure.
vote for Harris, you're wrong. You vote for Trump, you're an idiot. I mean, we all
Right.
just turn around and put these numbers together. 16 out of the 21 said that they would not support the hunting ban. We also have two
And
other.
was that unprompted, Dan? Like you were like did they know you were they obviously knew you were advocate, against it or whatever, but was it unprompted in the sense that did they already know about it? Did they have like did they see media? Like what was their perspective?
They knew about it because of the other context that was going on with the other ballot initiatives for the city and county of Denver voters.
Okay.
One which is a fur ban, which is to ban the sale, trade, display of fur in the city and county of Denver, but it incorporates cowboy hats, fishing lures, and Native American crafts. They also knew about it to some degree because it had muddied into the slaughterhouse ban, which is Ordinance 309, which is banning the one slaughterhouse that processes lamb
Right.
Has 160 employees, been there 70 years, and is the oldest slaughterhouse in the Western United States. It's the oldest and largest. So they were aware of some of this. But when I asked the Proposition 127 question, I said, "Are you familiar with Proposition 127, the hunting ban?" The majority of them said yes. Some said no. Some said, "Have no idea what you're talking about."
Right.
But then when you said there's a proposition on the ballot that would prohibit the hunting of mountain lions and bobcats, and then there was a minimal amount of conversation in the sense to where, well, who's trying to do that? Why would they want to do that? Are they becoming extinct? And when I said no, 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 and they answered all the questions, they talked amongst themselves, which was interesting because instead of a phone poll or survey, they had a chance to kind of beat off, each other's head a little bit. And 16 of the 21 said, "Why are we allowed to vote on this?"
Yeah, sure.
And so then I immediately went into the conversation of, were you all aware of the ramifications of Proposition 114 in 2020 about the wolf introduction?
Right.
No. How many of you voted for Proposition 114? Now, because now there was only 21 of them that were registered. At that point in time in 2020, there was only 18 of them registered.
Sure.
But all 18 of them that were registered to vote admitted that they voted for wolves in 2020. And 16 of the 21 now that are registered to vote out of this group said that they would not vote to support Proposition 127. Now, that's not scientific, but the reason I want to bring that up is because it mirrors, almost identical, of all the compilation that we've done of the last 8 years about the Denver city and county voters,
Right.
about the Boulder city and county voters, and it mirrors the research that we did specifically about Initiative 91 and Proposition 127, to the point to where even the people that weren't directly connected to it had a strong opinion of why are they asking me to do this.
Right.
And 4 or 5 of the girls, and now I've started to use some of their phrases just in the last couple of weeks, but 4 of the 5 of the girls said, all 4 said that they were in the medical profession. I don't want anybody to determine what I do in the medical profession from the voter standpoint.
Right.
We should go on science. And that's what they decided on this. Let the scientist do the scientist's work.
Sure.
Not extremists, not opinions, not voters, not innocent bystanders. Let the scientists, let the experts. And when I walked out of there after $240 of drink tab after talking to 25 different girls, it's a really good it's a good complete comprehensive survey, but it's not a cheap survey, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And it got to the point to where even the girls that I was talking to that started the conversation that still wanted to hear what other girls said, that they weren't part of their circle.
Yeah.
I said, "Excuse me, ladies, I'm going to go to this table. I'm going to start over." And even the girls that wanted to come over, when the guys, the young guys, the big strapping, you know what I'm talking about, the tattooed, arms as big as my waist, that they're shooting 120-pound bows and they're all tan and they're trying to emulate a combination of Cameron Haynes and Derek Wolfe combined or something. And the girls didn't want them to be part of the conversation.
Yeah.
They told them, the drinks are on him for us. We don't want to know your opinion. You go away. You go to the bar. You go to the pool table. You go back outside. The girls, I think, overall felt like that there was an opportunity amongst friends or at least like-minded individuals to get their point across. Granted, there was alcohol involved, but it was early in the evening and most of them had just started drinking. So this was not an ongoing endeavor. But it was enlightening to me through the course of the night to see that maybe it isn't all bad. Maybe we just look at a culture, maybe we just profile people because of where they live or the way they act, but they're not stupid, Cliff.
No, I think most people are rational, Dan. I think most people, I still hold out that most people are not stupid. They're rational. And if there's not a good reason, they don't want to screw with other people. I think.
Well, that was the main thing, because when I asked the deal about about the ordinance 308, and they said, "What is that?" And I said, "It's the fur ban." "Oh yeah, no, we shouldn't have that." well, it'll ban cowboy hats. What? Why would it ban
Yeah.
cowboy hats? And I said, because cowboy hats are made out of beaver felt
Beaver,
fur and
yeah.
rabbit felt. Well, no. I said, well, to ban fishing lures. Why would it ban fishing lures? I said, because it's got fur in it. It's got hair in it. Well, that's pretty stupid. And I said, it would ban Native American crafts. What do you mean? I said, well, then you wouldn't have the Denver March Powwow, the Indian Market. They couldn't do the National Western Stock Show. And every one of them came out and said, oh, no, 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 no. As soon as you start messing with culture, tradition, and heritage.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I said, that's the same thing on the hunting side, ladies. That's the same thing on the slaughterhouse deal. This is cultural, tradition, and heritage, and people should not be messing with other people's livelihood. That's a small subset of a research group, but it was fun to do, and it kind of enlightened me as to possibly how things might turn out in 25 days.
Yeah, no. I and it also like plays into the whole strategy perspective. Just more people like that need to get the message. That's
well,
what it comes
I look
down
at
to.
it optimistically. I mean, just maybe I'm blowing smoke here, but if those 25 girls talked to more about it amongst themselves, and they went home, and each one of them talked to two of their girlfriends, one of their family members, or one of their coworkers, and pretty soon maybe those 25 turned into 75.
Yeah,
And maybe those 75 talked to one apiece, and now it's 150. I think that's wishful thinking, but hey, how was your night Saturday? Well, we met this old guy, and he had this bear claw and a great big beard, and he bought us drinks, and he wanted to talk about politics.
Yeah, and he somehow convinced us that this proposition really doesn't make much sense.
Yeah. I do know that there was a lot of selfies taken with me in them, so they probably have posts on these other freaking forums or something to say, if you see this guy, stay the hell away from him somewhere.
No, I like it, man. It's a great story, and I think it does depict a lot of what's going on, Dan. I love it, man. Well, Dan, where can people follow you? What's coming up on the event side? Let's do that. Let's do that real quick.
On the 16th, I'm going to send you the invite I mentioned, is the Legislative Sportsman's Caucus. It's a virtual one. We'll have Director Davis on from Colorado Parks and Wildlife. We've got Wayne East with the Colorado Department of Agriculture. We'll have Mark Truex, who's the campaign manager for Colorado Wildlife Deserve Better on Proposition 127. We've got multiple legislators that'll be on for the Sportsman's Caucus. And we've got new Commissioner Murphy Robinson, who is the sportsman's rep that Governor Polis appointed, who's turning out to be, he's not confirmed yet, but he was appointed. He's turning out to be a very valuable asset for sportsmen and women, which is something we've been lacking for quite some time on the commission, especially since the governor has been there. So that's on the 16th. I'll get you the invite if you're so inclined to maybe share it through your channels before then, if somebody wants to just listen. On the 18th, we've got the rally at the Capitol, West Lawn of the Capitol from 11 till 2 on Friday, the 18th. It's a rally to oppose Proposition 127. We are encouraging, I said today in a meeting with 30 different organizations, we are mandating, but we are encouraging participation to let people know in the city of Denver who we are, what we're doing, and why we're here. And it's not just about Proposition 127 or mountain lions. It'll be right outside the governor's office at the Capitol. It's right outside the General Assembly at the legislature. The press has been invited and has confirmed multiple media coverage. People can bring their dogs. Doesn't mean hounds. It means dogs. Bring your bird dog, bring your waterfowl dog, bring your hound dog, bring your beagle dog, your blood tracking dog, stock dog.
Sure.
Dogs are on the chopping block. And we hope to have a turnout from the National Wild Turkey Federation and the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation and Wild Sheep Foundation and Rocky Mountain Bighorn. Every major organization and small organization is welcome, and we hope that they would come with their hats and their swag and plant a flag or a yard sign or a banner in the yard. We'll have independent speakers there to be able to promote opposing Proposition 127. And we're trying to show a force, and there again, this is part of the playbook, part of the roadmap. It's 2 days after the first season. It's a week, 7 days before the second season. We know people don't like downtown Denver, and we know they don't particularly care for the Capitol. This very well might be the most important thing that we've ever done as far as optics in downtown Denver. We won Senate Bill 31 with 350 people. We put people at the Capitol for the last 7 years with Sportsman's Day at the Capitol, where we fed legislators to the tune of 300 and 400 and 500 people every April. This is a do or die. This is more important than the Senate bill that we won in 2022. And it's going to be really a bad showing if we get 34 people to show up and 19 media and a guy with 2 dogs, and everybody else decided I wasn't going to go to Denver because I got better stuff to do, or I couldn't get a day off, or my wife wouldn't watch the kids, or I was going to go get ready for hunting next week, or I was going to clean up the truck from the last week. Just come down to the Capitol for 3 hours on the 18th and give us a hand. We've been busting our ass for the last 14 months on this. CRWM has been doing stuff tirelessly for the last 7 years. I'm not begging, borrowing, and stealing, but I could tell you we are asking for the support of sportsmen and women in the state of Colorado or beyond. Mike Costello from Howl for Wildlife's coming. The Go Hunt guys are talking about bringing people. I talked to guys this morning in North Carolina. They said, well, if we weren't here doing the North Carolina Asheville stuff with the floods and the hurricanes, we would be there. But my brother, they said, in Chillicothe, Missouri, will be there.
Yeah.
Now, I'm just hoping that it's not Mike and the Go Hunt guys and the guy from Chillicothe, which I don't think it's going to be. We just need some help.
Yeah, you just need people to be there. And that's October 18th. And what time?
11 to 2. 11 to 2.
No, I'll put it on all my stuff. And also, Dan, I'll put it in the intro of this podcast for people, so people get it right off the bat. Yeah, but I know that's important one. And then SaveTheHunt.com.
Save the Hunt Colorado. SaveTheHuntColorado.com. And then the issues committee is WildlifeDeserveBetter.com. And you can get the media information on there. And if you're so inclined and want to do it for yourself, if you go to the media page on WildlifeDeserveBetter.com, this is a big secret. I don't want to turn around and give too much information here. But the password to get into the media cart, to where you can utilize whatever media is there, is all one word, lowercase wildlife.
Okay.
And so if you share that with any of the anybody out there, then our playbook will be just given to everybody, and we won't be able to turn around and win. No, but
somehow I bet they probably have the password.
I think they already got it, but it's a mechanism for us to track who, and the utilization of that, as opposed to just saying here it is.
Yeah,
that people can get in on it, but there's some really good media opportunities. If you run a small hounds organization in Arizona, or if you run a bighorn sheep organization in Montana, or maybe a predator hunting organization in Nebraska, take our media stuff and utilize it for not just this, but see what we're putting out.
Sure.
This is a playbook for every single sportsman and woman in every single state, for every method of taking every species. And if we win, no better playbook would have ever been created.
Right.
You remember, are you a football fan?
I don't watch a lot of football, but over the years I have.
I remember the George Seiferts of the San Francisco 49ers, and they had the West Coast offense. And everybody wanted to turn around and run the West Coast offense. Well, then Mike Shanahan, who worked for George Seifert and the 49ers, came to be the coach of the Denver Broncos eventually, and he ran the West Coast offense.
Yeah.
And we are trying to run a facsimile from a hunting perspective of the West Coast offense. Fast, nimble, quick, know the position, know the playbook, know the route, and you run and gun, and you score, and you score, and you score, and you score. And we have done that since 2007, but it doesn't matter at any level unless we win on November 5th.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Yeah, but when we do win, it will be then you'll have the proof of concept completely solid on it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you look at some of the stuff. Maybe you saw the stuff, but you've been out of pocket. Save the Hunt knife.
Oh yeah, cool.
That's the outdoor edge knife.
Yeah, the outdoor edge knife. Sure.
Yeah. They turned around and did that. They did 500 to start with, and then they're turning around and doing another 1,000. All
Okay.
funds, all proceeds come to this fight. If you look at
Like 100% of the
hundred
revenue.
percent, 100%.
Nice.
If you look at what Eastman's did, they turned around and did this magazine.
Yeah.
It's got Derek Wolf on it. It's all the
Yeah.
mountain lion stuff, but all the stuff on it, the entire magazine, our stuff, everything on the back, the QR code, the whole 9 yards.
Sure.
Thousands and thousands of copies of this. Full Cry magazine doing that stuff. Go Hunt turn around and putting us on their shopping cart to where you can finalize your purchase. Howl for Wildlife doing stuff. Lorenzo Sartini has been more than accommodating. You got the marketplace up in North Dakota doing stuff for us. You got Iron Will Outfitters doing stuff for us. You just look at the support from the community. Swarovski ended up donating $17,000 worth of product to our
Nice.
outdoorsman days. And I just can't say enough about the enthusiasm and the outreach of all these organizations and entities and individuals. It's part of the playbook.
Oh yeah, sure, of course. Yeah, everybody
It's
has to
part of the
be.
playbook.
Yeah, everybody has to be aligned in that regard. And like I said in the beginning of this interview, Dan, like it seems like never before people have been, man. So yeah, no, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. But like you said, like everybody's got to keep the momentum going.
Got to keep the pressure on. You know, you're. I don't know you well, but I respect your accomplishments, and you and I've talked on several occasions in person, and shared some insight about some different things.
Sure.
A good hunter, one that pursues game, especially in a limited amount of time. You got a 5-day season or a 7-day season, or maybe the weather's coming in or whatever it is. You adapt and you modify and you strategize on a change of concept. Maybe the wind was wrong. Maybe another hunter turned around and did something. Maybe the elk just screwed up, or maybe they went on a piece of private property. You adapt
Sure.
and you modify your plan of action. That's exactly what we were forced to do here. The only difference is our season has been 14 months.
Right.
And anybody that thinks that we can't do this or they can't be part of this must not be a very good hunter.
Yeah.
Because if they're going to quit and they're not going to turn around and try, why would you give up on something that you're so passionate about, that you're trying to fight for to save, so you can have the ability to go out and still be able to hunt?
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. And time is it's a critical time on all of it. So Dan, I appreciate having you on, man. And we covered a bunch of great stuff. And whatever I can do to help, man, I'll do it. And I encourage everybody listening to do the same, man.
Cliff, I just want to say, not only thank you from the bottom of my heart for being able to let us continue to ride your coattails and all the other people out there. We probably won't talk again before the election. If we win, I'd like to go on a victory tour with different individuals and influencers and podcasters and shows.
Yeah, for sure.
To make sure that people understand that the value of the North American model and science-based wildlife management is not only worth fighting for, it's worth bragging about when you do fight for it successfully. And if we don't decide in our own little wheelhouses, if we don't decide what's important to us and what's important to our friends and our colleagues, that we can make that important to us, I don't know how we're going to make this sustainable past the next generation. And I think it's up to people like us to give credit to our forefathers that helped set these tenets and these principles in place, and to make sure that we continue to have this stuff, so we can have sporting shows, and so we can have television shows, and so we can have a product industry, and so we can have stewardship and conservation and habitat, and most importantly, so we can continue to be part of the ecosystem and the biodiversity of what they don't want us to be. And I think with guys like you doing your stuff, and even to some degree guys like me and all the other influencer people that are out there, it's up to us. And I think it's on the cusp of victory or the agony of defeat. And I just look forward to continuing to have these conversations as we move forward, because I don't think this is going to be the last time in Colorado, and I know it's not going to be the last time in other states. So
Oh yeah.
with
Sure.
that, I'll close it out, and I just appreciate it, and
Yeah,
I
of
hope
course.
that hope you're successful in the rest of your fall.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. You too, man. I'll keep in touch with you. I'll talk to you before it all goes down. Thanks, man.
Okay. Aim small, miss small. Thanks, Cliff.
If you enjoyed this content, do me a huge favor. Subscribe on whatever platform you consume it on. Spotify, Apple, YouTube, whatever works for you guys. Everything else is on my website, pursuitwithcliff.com. Go there and it's going to be very apparent to you that I work my ass off just to not have a real job. All the hunts I guide, all the seminars I put on, all the unique experiences I offer, and the membership site, all the details are there.